Darlene F., age 52, Egg Harbor Township, New Jersey. That is the last time I will say her name. What I will tell you from here forward is a reconstruction, assembled from a sealed hospital file, a journal recovered from her kitchen table, and testimony from people who loved her and cannot explain what happened to the person they loved. I have spent 3 years with this material. I am not finished grieving it. September 16th, 2021, the day before admission. By all available evidence, her journal, a grocery receipt, time-stamped 4:47 p.m., a text message sent to her daughter at 9:12 in the evening. It was an ordinary day. She bought coffee. She watched television. She wrote 3 sentences in her journal before bed. The 3rd sentence was, "There is an echo in this house, and I cannot find where it starts." She had lived in that house for 19 years. She knew its sounds. The water heater, the way the back door frame shifted in September when the humidity dropped. She was not a person who frightened easily. Her neighbor of 11 years told me, and I am quoting directly, "Darlene was the steadiest person I knew. If she said something was wrong, something was wrong." This footage was logged as a camera malfunction. The timestamp is 14 hours after admission. She had been awake, according to the nursing notes, for 31 consecutive hours at this point. She had told the night nurse that she could not sleep because every time she closed her eyes, she could still hear it reading. Just reading. Everything, she thought. It knew everything. The intake form describes what she told the admitting physician in her own words. She said, "I can hear myself thinking, but it's not my voice reading it back." The physician, to their credit, did not dismiss this. They logged it precisely as she described it. They noted the origination point, 2 feet behind her left ear. They noted that the voice read in a consistent rhythm, not hers, and that it did not pause when she tried to stop thinking. By the 2nd day, she had stopped speaking voluntarily. The nursing notes describe her as selectively mute, but clearly cognitively present. She communicated by writing on a notepad. Her daughter, who I spoke with at length, told me that when she visited on the 18th, her mother wrote one thing and circled it 3 times. She said, "It knows what I'm going to think before I think it. It's not reading me anymore. It's ahead of me." The laryngeal scan was the finding that sealed the file. The attending neurologist documented micro-vibration patterns in the soft tissue of her throat, consistent with, and I am reading from the clinical notes, recent external acoustic pressure, as though something had pressed its mouth against the laryngeal region and drawn breath inward. The mark on her neck confirmed the contact point. No one on the ward reported seeing anyone near her. The ward camera, covering her room, recorded the shadow footage you have already seen. The corridor outside her room, 3rd floor, east wing. The displaced ceiling tile was logged by maintenance as a ventilation issue. The scratch marks were not logged at all. I found them in an unredacted still frame, pulled from archived security footage by a former Atlanticare employee who asked to remain anonymous, who told me, and I will never forget this, that zip code sent us 7 patients with the same complaint that year. We were told to code them all as auditory processing disorder and close the files. 7 patients, same zip code, 4 miles from the tree line. Her property backed onto a drainage corridor that connects, through municipal green space, to the Pine Barrens property. I walked that corridor in the spring of 23. I am not going to describe everything I found. I will say that the soil in one location showed signs of repeated visitation, and that the bark damage pattern on a white pine at the property boundary was, according to a wildlife biologist I consulted, Inconsistent with any known native species. She said that twice. Inconsistent with any known native species. The file was sealed on the 19th. The second MRI had been scheduled for the 20th. It was never processed. The neurologist who ordered it left Atlantic Care 2 weeks later. I attempted to contact them 4 times over 18 months. On the 4th attempt, I received a voicemail, not from them, but from a number registered to them that contained 11 seconds of silence, and then a sound I have had analyzed by 2 separate audio engineers. Both described it as vocalization through a non-standard resonant cavity. Neither would elaborate when I pressed them. I want to be precise about what the folklore record actually describes, because it matters here. The entity known in South Jersey tradition as the Leeds Devil, the Jersey Devil, is consistently described across centuries of accounts as bipedal, winged, with a resonant cry that eyewitnesses have repeatedly characterized not as animal sound, but as something attempting and failing to produce language. Attempting. There is a specificity in those historical accounts that I did not fully appreciate until I read her file, until I understood what it was doing behind her left ear. The annotation in the margin is mine. I made it 14 months into this research when I found the 1909 pamphlet account and understood what I was reading. Every historical account I have since reviewed that describes the entity in proximity to humans describes the same behavior: proximity to the head, sustained stillness, something like attention. Not aggression. Attention. I do not know what it takes when it does this. I do not know what it gives back. What I know is that 6 other patients from her zip code presented with the same primary complaint in the same fiscal year, and I have been able to locate and speak to 2 of them. This is the letter she wrote to her daughter on the 19th of September. The daughter received it after discharge. She gave it to me during our second meeting, and then asked me to leave her home and not return, which I did. I do not blame her. I have read this letter perhaps 300 times. The part that stays with me, the part I cannot set down, is longer than I realized. She had no way to know when it started. Neither do I. This text exchange is from one of the 2 other patients I located. I am not identifying them. I will tell you what they told me in person, which is this. The experience did not end with the voice stopping. It ended with the voice receding, moving away, as though satisfied. They used that word without my prompting. Satisfied. They told me they could track it leaving, could hear it grow fainter, and that in the last moment before it became inaudible, they heard it reading something back that they did not recognize. Thoughts that were not theirs. From someone else it had already visited. I have had this photograph examined by 3 imaging specialists. All 3 confirmed no digital manipulation. One of them returned the file to me with a note that said only, "The geometry of the occipital structure in the upper left quadrant is not consistent with any known bird or mammal species native to New Jersey." They did not ask me where I took it. I did not tell them. I took this photograph. I want to be transparent about that. I did not see what is in it when I took it. I was photographing the canopy to document the location. I did not look at this photograph for 3 days after developing the role, because I developed a different role first by mistake. When I finally looked at it, I sat with it for a long time before I understood what I was seeing. I still am not certain I understand what I am seeing. What I am certain of is the direction the head is turned. The bearing from her house to the nearest Pine Barrens access point is 82 degrees east. I plotted all 7 addresses. The distances vary between 3 and 6 miles. The entry point on the tree line is the same for all 7. The same point. I stood at that point in October of 2022. At approximately dusk, I lasted 14 minutes. I am aware of how that sounds. I am telling you, because you should know that this is not a story I am telling from a comfortable distance. I have been to the place this thing comes from. I do not know how to explain what this document does when scanned at high resolution. I have shared it with 2 other researchers and neither of them could explain it either. What I will say is that the secondary markings are not ink. They are pressure indentations. As though someone read the page so many times they left a physical impression in the paper. As though the reading was a physical act. As though it required a mouth that could touch the page. Page 14 of the journal she kept during her admission. She brought it from home. The nursing staff permitted it because they believed the act of writing was therapeutic. I believe they were right, and I believe it made no difference. She wrote because she needed to, not because it helped. The entry on page 14 was written on the 21st of September. She had been in the ward for 4 days. Something had been beside her, behind her left shoulder. Margaret Elise Voss. I will say her name once. She deserves that much. She deserves at least that. She kept a second journal, not the one the nursing staff knew about. This one was smaller, a pocket moleskin, black cover, the kind you buy at a gas station. It was found inside the pillowcase. The coroner logged it. Then it was logged again as not found. Both entries exist in the same file. 4:11 in the morning, September 20th. 3rd floor, East Wing, her room. This image was extracted from the same archived footage source as the corridor still. The parking lot camera. It should not have the resolution to show this level of detail on the building exterior. I cannot explain why it does. I can tell you that the shape's position, outside the window, oriented toward the room, is consistent with the location the voice originated from. 2 feet behind her left ear. From outside. From above. From something that does not need to be inside to be in the room. I found it. I won't say where. I won't say how. What I will say is that the handwriting on the last 3 pages is not hers. I have the comparison samples. I have her grocery lists, her letters to her sister, 15 months of personal correspondence. The handwriting on the last 3 pages belongs to someone else. Something else. The letters are too tall, the pressure too deep. In one place, the pen went through. Her sister sent me a photograph, taken 11 days before the admission. A birthday dinner. 7 people at the table. She is seated at the far left, mid-laugh, eyes almost closed. I want you to look at the window behind her, not at her. At the window, there is something in the glass, not a reflection of anything inside that room. The room is on the 2nd floor. There is no fire escape. There is nothing outside that window that could cast that shape. The sister says she did not notice it until I asked her to look. She has not returned my calls since. The coroner's notes, page 7. Cause of death, cardiac event, acute. No prior cardiac history. No contributing pathology identified. Age 31. No prior cardiac history. I have read page 740, maybe 50 times now. There is a sentence at the bottom that does not follow from anything above it. It reads, and I am reading this exactly. Subject appeared to have been mid-vocalization at time of arrest. Musculature of larynx and soft palate consistent with sustained phonation. She was saying something, or something was saying something through her. They left behind everything. That is the thing about them. They always leave everything behind. The question, the only question that has ever mattered, is whether leaving it behind was the point. I have been making this film for 3 years. My notes are in the file attached to this project. My contact information is with the production company. If this is the last chapter, That was not my intention. I intended to continue. I want you to know that. Whatever you are about to see in the final image, I want you to know that I intended to continue. They left behind the journal, the official one. Page 14 is the page I could not finish reading in the previous chapter. I can finish it now. I think I can finish it now. She wrote, "It has been standing outside the window for 4 nights. It does not do anything. It stands. It watches. Last night I woke up, and I could hear it breathing. And the sound was inside my chest, not outside the glass. Inside, like it was using my lungs to breathe instead of its own. I am not frightened. That is the part I cannot explain to anyone. I am not frightened at all. I just want to know what it wants to say." The second journal, the one with the handwriting that isn't hers. I had the last 3 pages translated, not transcribed, translated. The language is English, but the syntax is not. One researcher told me the sentence structure resembles no known linguistic pattern. Another stopped responding to my emails. The final entry, last page, last line, the pen that went through. It reads, "She heard it all the way through. Tell the one who comes after her. We were here before the pines. We will be here after every name you give us turns to ash in your careful, careful mouth."